She was already dying when the human called her beautiful. Not brave. Not powerful. Not dangerous. Beautiful. On a battlefield where entire cities had burned, where machines screamed and stars fell from orbit, that single soft human word cut through the frozen wind like a blade of sunlight. And the galaxy would later learn that this was the moment everything changed. Commander Vilara of the Chinan Dominion lay half buried in the snow, her blue skin blending with the ice fields of Carthos 9. The war between humans and the Dominion had lasted 7 brutal months. It was supposed to be a short campaign. The Dominion had superior ships, superior weapons, superior strategy. What they did not understand was humanity. Her golden hair was stiff with frost. Her left arm was pinned under shattered alloy plating. Her armor, once polished and royal, was cracked and smoking softly in the cold. Her internal display flickered warnings she could no longer read. Core temperature critical. Circulation failing. Signal lost. Abandoned. She tried to move and pain shot through her ribs. A broken exoframe joint stabbed into her side. She almost laughed at the irony. She had commanded fleets. She had conquered 3 systems. She had calculated human defeat with perfect mathematical certainty. And now she would die face down in snow on a planet humans were never meant to hold. The wind howled over twisted metal. Dominion walkers burned in the distance, their tall legs frozen mid-collapse like statues of failure. Human dropships lay scattered too, smaller, less elegant, but stubborn even in ruin. Vilara closed her eyes. The Dominion would mark her as lost. Strategic sacrifice. Acceptable loss. That was how her people survived for centuries, through logic without mercy. A crunch interrupted the wind. Her long ears twitched. Another crunch. Uneven. Heavy. Not Dominion. Human. She forced one eye open. Through the white blur of falling snow, a shape stumbled forward. Thick armor. Scratched visor. Rifle hanging loose at his side. He moved like someone who had survived through luck and stubborn refusal to quit. He tripped over a broken drone and cursed loudly. Vilara almost felt insulted. This was the warrior fate sent to witness her death? He reached her and stopped. For a long moment, he simply stared. She expected a weapon raised. A finishing shot. A victorious speech about human resistance. Instead, he slowly removed his helmet. He had dark skin, frost on his eyelashes, blood running down his forehead from a cut above his brow. His breathing was heavy. Exhausted. Human. He looked at her not with hatred, but with wonder. "Wow," he whispered. She tried to gather strength to speak, to demand dignity at least. Only frost left her lips. He crouched beside her and carefully brushed snow from her shoulder plate. Up close, she saw how damaged he was. His armor was patched with different metals. One glove did not match the other. His chest unit blinked red, also failing. He should have been retreating. He should have been saving himself. Instead, he was here. "You're freezing," he said softly, stating the obvious like humans often did. Her voice cracked when she answered. "So, are you?" He gave a small tired smile. "Yeah, but I'm used to bad weather." She wanted to mock him, to remind him that his species had started this rebellion, that humans refused to submit to Dominion order, that billions could have been spared. But the words felt heavy. He studied her face, the scars along her cheek, the faint glow under her skin, the strength even in her broken state. And then he said it. Beautiful. The word confused her more than any weapon ever had. Beautiful? She was cracked armor, blue blood frozen on her collar, an enemy commander responsible for human casualties. Beautiful did not fit. Her species valued strength, precision, victory. Beauty was considered inefficient. Yet the way he said it carried no strategy, no manipulation, no fear, just truth. Something inside her, something colder than the snow, shifted. "Why?" she managed to whisper. He shrugged slightly, teeth chattering. "Because you are." No grand speech. No political motive. Just simple human honesty. She felt warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with temperature. Humans were illogical creatures. They charged superior defenses. They built weapons from scrap. They joked while bleeding. They saved enemies. And apparently, they saw beauty in the middle of war. He looked at her crushed arm and began moving debris carefully. "That's pointless," she muttered. "Your forces are retreating." He grunted while lifting metal. "Yeah, probably. You will lose this planet. Maybe. You could die." He paused and looked directly into her eyes. "Everyone dies," he said quietly. "Not everyone gets to choose who they are before that happens." That sentence hit harder than artillery. Choose who they are. The Dominion never chose. They followed probability, efficiency, expansion curves. Humans chose. Even when it made no sense. Even when it hurt. With shaking effort, he freed her arm. She gasped but did not scream. He removed his thermal pack and pressed it against her chest plate. "You need heat more than I do," he said. "That reduces your survival odds by 40%, she replied automatically. He laughed weakly. "Yeah. Sounds like us." Snow thickened around them. Visibility dropping. In the sky above, a Dominion cruiser appeared through the clouds, scanning. Her rescue. Or her retrieval. If they saw the human, he would be vaporized instantly. She felt the old logic return. She could signal them. One pulse from her wrist beacon. Human eliminated. Commander recovered. War continues. Instead, she looked at the man beside her, now shivering violently but still adjusting the thermal pack to keep her core stable. "You are foolish," she whispered. "Definitely," he agreed. The cruiser scan beam passed overhead. She did not activate her beacon. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, distant human engine sounds echoed from the ridge. Reinforcements. The human sighed in relief. "Looks like my ride's late as usual." She studied him carefully. "Why did you help me?" she asked. He thought for a moment. Then answered simply, "Because you were alone." Alone. That word carried more weight than beautiful. In that instant, Commander Villara made the most irrational decision in Dominion history. When human soldiers crested the ridge and aimed weapons at her, she raised her good hand weakly and spoke in clear Dominion command code. "Stand down." Her own orbital cruiser hesitated, confused by conflicting signals. Human soldiers froze, unsure. The war paused, not because of strategy, but because one human chose kindness over logic, and one alien commander chose curiosity over conquest. Snow continued to fall on Carthos 9, but something new had begun beneath it. Not surrender. Not victory. Possibility. And the galaxy was not ready for what humanity and a forgotten alien queen would build next. The first human soldier to reach them did not fire. He should have. Commander Villara was a symbol of Dominion control. A high-value target. Her face had been on human warning screens for months. Humans had lost entire platoons trying to stop her advances. Yet the soldier froze when he saw her sitting in the snow, half held upright by a wounded human with no helmet and shaking hands. "What the hell is this?" the soldier demanded, rifle raised but uncertain. The man beside Villara lifted both hands slowly. "Easy, Corporal. She's not fighting. She's surviving." The corporal's eyes flicked to Villara, then to the sky where the Dominion cruiser still hovered like a giant predator. "That ship is scanning us." Vilara's throat was raw, but she forced the words out. "It will not fire. Not unless I tell it to." A second soldier laughed once, harsh and disbelieving. "Yeah. And why would you not tell it to?" Villara looked at the trembling human who had shared his heat pack with her. His cheeks were pale from cold. His lips were cracked. Still, he kept his body positioned between her and the rifles, as if his own life was a shield. "Because I was alone," she thought. "Because he did not let me become a forgotten corpse." Out loud, she said, "Because I am reconsidering." The word sounded strange in her mouth. Dominion officers did not reconsider. They recalculated. The corporal didn't lower his rifle. Name. The human answered first, voice tired but steady. Private Jace Merrin. 3rd Salvage Unit. Salvage unit, not infantry, not elite forces. That explained the mismatched armor, the patched equipment. Humans had created entire teams whose job was to crawl through wreckage and pull out anything useful. Dominion doctrine considered salvage beneath military honor. Humans called it survival. The corporal nodded sharply. Merrin, you're bleeding and freezing. We get you back now. Jace shook his head. Not without her. You're out of your mind. Maybe, Jace said, almost smiling. But I'm still here. The corporal's jaw tightened. He glanced at the ridge. More human troops were arriving, spreading out, weapons ready. A medic drone buzzed close but hesitated, unsure whether to approach the alien commander. Vilara's instincts screamed that this was the moment humans would end her. Instead, the corporal made a gesture Vilara did not expect. He clicked his comms and said, "Command, we have the target. Alive. But, situation is complicated." A voice crackled back. "Confirm, Vilara of the Dominion is in your custody." "In visual," the corporal replied. "But she claims the cruiser won't fire unless she orders it." The comm line went silent for a breath, then the voice returned, harder now. "Shoot her." Jace's head snapped toward the corporal. "No." The corporal didn't answer immediately. His finger tightened on the trigger, then loosened. He looked at Vilara again. Vilara realized something shocking. Even now, humans were arguing with their own command. Not out of rebellion. Out of conscience. The corporal spoke low. "If we shoot her, that cruiser fires. We all die. She knows it." Jace nodded. "And she didn't call it down. That means something." The corporal's eyes narrowed. "Or it means she's buying time." Vilara could have stayed silent. Let them fight over her fate. Dominion policy would have called that efficient. Instead, she said, "I can prove it." She raised her wrist slowly, showing a broken but functioning beacon. Her fingers were stiff, but she pressed a sequence. A coded pulse flashed, invisible to human eyes, but the cruiser above responded instantly. Its scan beam stopped. It pulled back. Then, in perfect obedience, it climbed higher into the clouds, retreating from firing position. Human soldiers stared. The corporal's mouth opened slightly. She just called it off. Jace exhaled, as if he had been holding breath for hours. "Told you." The comm voice returned, urgent now. "Corporal, what did she do?" The corporal swallowed. "She ordered the cruiser to disengage." Another pause. Then, "Bring her in. Alive. If she moves wrong, end it." The corporal finally lowered his rifle half an inch. It was not trust. It was a thin bridge over a deep canyon. They formed a moving circle around Vilara as they helped her stand. Her legs felt like shattered glass. Still, she forced herself upright. Jace stayed close, still acting like her clumsy guardian, though his own knees shook. As they moved through the wreckage, Vilara saw the human base camp on the far ridge, and she understood why Dominion intelligence had underestimated them. It was not a base in the Dominion sense. No grand walls. No perfect geometry. No elegant energy shields. It was a living, breathing construction site. Humans had built their survival out of broken things. Starship hull plates had become shelters. Engine coils had become heating lines. Old cargo nets were stitched into wind walls. A wrecked Dominion walker had been stripped and turned into a watchtower with human flags painted on its metal like defiance itself. It looked messy. It looked impossible. It worked. Vilara stared, stunned. "This is your fortress." A nearby soldier snorted. "Fortress? No. This is Tuesday." Jace coughed a laugh. "Welcome to human engineering." A medic finally approached, a woman with tired eyes and heavy gloves. She scanned Jace first, then Vilara, her expression unreadable. "You're both idiots," the medic said. Jace tried to grin. "Doc, you say that like it's new." The medic injected him with something, then pressed a warming patch onto Vilara's neck. Vilara flinched. The warmth spread fast, almost painful, like waking up after a long sleep. A human commander entered the shelter, older, scarred, eyes sharp. His uniform had no shine, no ceremony. Only a small patch, a circle with a wrench and a star. He studied Vilara like she was a bomb that might choose to speak. "I'm Captain Reyes," he said. "You're the reason my people have graves on 5 worlds." Vilara met his eyes. "Yes." Reyes nodded slowly, as if honesty was the only language he respected. "Why are you here, alive, in my camp?" Vilara glanced at Jace. He sat slumped against a crate, shivering, looking far too small to have changed history. Then she answered, carefully, "Because one of your soldiers chose to see me as a person, not a target." Reyes's face didn't soften, but his eyes shifted, just slightly, as if something inside him moved. "People," he repeated. "That's a dangerous idea in war." Vilara breathed out. "And yet, your species keeps doing it." Reyes leaned closer. "You can end this. You can call your cruiser down. You can give us codes. You can stop the next wave of Dominion reinforcements." Vilara's mind raced. Dominion doctrine. Loyalty. Logic. Then she remembered the word that had pierced the cold. Beautiful. Not as an evaluation of her face, but as a recognition of existence, even in ruin. She said, "I cannot stop the Dominion alone." Reyes's jaw clenched. "Then what can you do?" Vilara lifted her chin. "I can tell you something your intelligence does not know." Reyes's eyes sharpened. "Speak." Vilara's ears twitched. She chose her next words like stepping on thin ice. "The Dominion does not fear your weapons," she said. "They fear what your people build when you have nothing left." Reyes's brow tightened. "That's not an answer." "It is," Vilara insisted. "Because you are not losing this war due to weakness. You are losing because you fight like a traditional species." Reyes stared at her. Vilara continued, voice stronger now. "You try to meet the Dominion where we are strong, fleets, formations, precision. You try to win by matching our structure." She leaned forward slightly. "You will never outstructure the Dominion. That is our nature." Reyes said nothing. "So," Vilara whispered, "do not fight like us." Jace stirred from the corner. "That's what I've been saying," he muttered weakly. Reyes glanced back at him. "You've been saying that." Jace shrugged. "Not in those fancy words. I usually say, stop trying to play their game." Reyes returned his gaze to Vilara. "If we don't fight like you, how do we fight?" Vilara's lips parted. In her mind, she saw Dominion supply lines, relay beacons, logic grids, predictive algorithms that assumed enemies followed patterns. Humans didn't follow patterns. That was the point. She said, "You fight like humans." Reyes's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" Vilara took a slow breath. "You build weapons from scrap," she said. "You create warmth from broken engines. You make fortresses from wreckage. You do not seek perfection. You seek function." She pointed weakly toward the camp outside. "That is your true power, not your guns." Reyes held her stare. "And how does that beat a fleet that can glass this planet?" Vilara's voice dropped, almost reverent. "Because Dominion fleets rely on certainty," she said. "And humans are chaos with a heartbeat." The room fell silent. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. Reyes finally spoke. "If I let you live, my people will call me a traitor." Vilara answered without hesitation. "If you kill me, the Dominion will remain blind to you, and you will keep dying the same way." Reyes stared at her for a long time. Then he said, "You're not a prisoner." Vilara's chest tightened. What am I? Reyes's voice was hard. A problem. And maybe, an opportunity. He turned to the comm panel. Get me every engineer, every salvage chief, every crazy builder we have. He looked back at Vilara. If you're going to teach humans how to break the Dominion's logic, he said, you better do it fast. Vilara's heart pounded. This was it. Not peace. Not surrender. Something stranger. A human idea. Hope. Built from wreckage. Outside, in the snow, the Dominion cruiser circled in the clouds, still waiting for her command. And for the first time, Vilara didn't want to give it. Because she was starting to see what humans did best. They took impossible odds. And turned them into plans. 3 days later, the Dominion fleet arrived. Not one cruiser. Not a patrol group. A fleet. Black triangular warships tore through orbit like blades through fabric. Their arrival burned lines across the sky. Sensors across Carthos, 9 screamed warnings. Human scouts reported the same message in different voices. They brought everything. Inside the human salvage fortress, there was no panic. There was noise. Welding torches flared. Engineers argued. Someone laughed too loudly. Tools clanged against metal. Humans moved faster when afraid, not away from danger, but towards something they could build. Commander Vilara stood at the center of it all, still weak but upright. Human fabric wrapped around her damaged armor. A heating coil hummed across her shoulder. Before her, a chaotic projection filled the air. Dominion fleet formation. Perfect lines. Predictable arcs. Defensive shells layered in mathematical beauty. She knew those formations. She had commanded them. Captain Reyes stood beside her, arms crossed. So they'll glass us from orbit within the hour. Yes, Vilara said calmly. That is the logical outcome. Jace, now patched and moving again, leaned against a table of half-disassembled Dominion tech. Cool. Love when logic wants to kill us. Vilara almost smiled. 3 days. That was how long she had lived among humans. 3 days of watching them take apart a captured Dominion relay core. 3 days of watching them argue about ideas that sounded insane. 3 days of watching them turn broken drones into something new. Dominion warfare relied on certainty. Human warfare relied on invention. An engineer with grease across her cheek pointed at the projection. Their command ships rely on synchronized predictive AI, right? Yes, Vilara confirmed. Every ship calculates based on fleet-wide probability models. Jace snapped his fingers. So they expect us to behave like prey. Reyes looked at Vilara. What happens if their models fail? Vilara answered slowly. Dominion commanders do not train for unpredictability. It is considered inefficient. The engineer grinned. Good. Because inefficient is kind of our specialty. Behind them, human teams rolled out something that made Vilara's breath catch. It was not a ship. It was a storm. Hundreds of small scrap-built drones, patched from broken parts, Dominion cores rewired into human casings. None were identical. None followed clean lines. They hummed unevenly, like a swarm of metallic insects. What is that? Vilara asked quietly. Jace looked proud. That's confusion. The plan had been simple in theory. Humans had discovered that Dominion Fleet AI required consistent sensor data to maintain formation precision. It predicted enemy movement based on patterns. So humans would remove the pattern. Each scrap drone carried a fragment of corrupted Dominion signal code, not enough to control a ship, but enough to inject noise into fleet synchronization. Thousands of small, irrational signals. Like static in a perfect song. Vilara had warned them it might not work. Humans had built it anyway. Because maybe was enough. Alarms blared. Fleet entering bombardment range. Reyes looked at Vilara one last time. You still have time to call them off. She looked up at the sky display. Her people were up there. Officers who trusted her judgment. Soldiers who followed Dominion doctrine without question. For centuries, her species had believed emotion weakened strategy. And yet, it was emotion that had shown her something new. She lowered her hand from her inactive beacon. "No," she said. Reyes nodded once. "Launch." The ridge above the human camp split open. The scrap swarm rose like a broken flock of birds. In orbit, Dominion targeting arrays locked onto the surface. "Orbital cannons charging," a human tech shouted. The first beam fired. But before it struck, the scrap swarm reached the lower atmosphere. And then, chaos. Every drone began broadcasting at once. Not one signal. Thousands. Corrupted Dominion handshake codes. Half-formed fleet commands. Randomized coordinates. Ghost identifications. Phantom enemy signatures. Dominion ships faltered. In orbit, their formation glitched. One ship adjusted 2 degrees left. Another corrected right. Targeting arrays flickered as their predictive models filled with contradictions. Vilara watched in stunned silence. She had seen human bravery. She had seen human kindness. But this was human audacity. "They're overloading the synchronization grid," she whispered. Reyes allowed himself the smallest smile. "You said don't fight like you." The Dominion flagship attempted to reset the network. But each reset required consensus between ships. And consensus required clean data. Humans were feeding them nonsense. Dominion cannons fired again, but this time, 2 beams intersected incorrectly, colliding mid-space due to miscalculated trajectories. One Dominion escort ship drifted slightly off formation. Another misidentified it as debris. A defensive array activated prematurely. In perfect formation warfare, even 1 degree of uncertainty was dangerous. Humans had injected 10,000 degrees. Inside the Dominion flagship, commanders would be recalculating frantically. Vilara could imagine their faces. Confusion. Fear. Uncertainty. Emotions they were never trained to manage. The human swarm drones began detonating in timed bursts, not explosions for damage, but flashes of electromagnetic distortion. Like lightning inside a machine mind. One Dominion cruiser fired at a false target generated by corrupted code. It hit its own supply ship. Reyes exhaled slowly. "That's new." The sky turned into a fractured battlefield. Not clean. Not elegant. Wild. Human fighters launched next, small, aggressive, darting through gaps in Dominion coordination. Without synchronized support, Dominion ships were strong but isolated. Humans did not fight fleets. They hunted confusion. Vilara felt something rising inside her chest. Pride. Not Dominion pride. Something different. "They cannot adapt fast enough," she said quietly. Reyes glanced at her. "Meaning?" "Meaning," she answered, eyes locked on the crumbling fleet formation. "You have already won." The Dominion flagship attempted one final coordinated strike. It broadcast a priority override. For a moment, the formation steadied. Then, one of the corrupted signals echoed back through their own network. A simple human phrase embedded deep in the noise. A phrase Jace had insisted on adding as a joke. The engineer had rolled her eyes but coded it in any way. Across the Dominion fleet's shared tactical channel, in clear Dominion translation, a message flashed. "Beautiful." Not as a compliment. As interference. A word with no military function. No calculable threat value. The Dominion AI flagged it as irrelevant. But irrelevant signals inside a predictive model forced reallocation of processing weight. A tiny delay. In battle, delay meant death. Human fighters slipped through. Dominion command nodes fell one by one. And then, the flagship engines flared. Retreat. The remaining ships broke formation entirely and jumped to faster-than-light escape. Silence returned to orbit. On the surface of Carthos 9, humans stared upward as debris burned like falling stars. Jace let out a shaky laugh. Did we just win with scrap and sarcasm? Reyes lowered his binoculars slowly. We won because they expected logic. Vilara stood still, watching the last Dominion ship vanish into light. Her people had never been defeated like this. Not by superior firepower. Not by larger fleets. By unpredictability. By creativity. By a species that refused to behave properly in war. Jace walked up beside her. So, what happens now? Vilara thought of the Dominion High Council. They would not ignore this. They would study the defeat. They would prepare. But something had changed. Not just in strategy. In her. The Dominion will adapt, she said. But slowly. They do not change easily. Reyes nodded. Humans do. Vilara looked at the human camp. Messy, loud, alive. You build from nothing, she said. You fight without certainty. You choose who you are in the worst moments. She turned to Jace. You called me beautiful when I was broken. He shrugged awkwardly. Still true. She felt warmth again, not from coils or tech. From connection. The Dominion fears chaos, she said softly. But chaos is only terrifying when it lacks purpose. Reyes studied her carefully. And what is your purpose now, Commander? Vilara looked toward the stars. Now, she said, I teach the Dominion what humanity truly is. Jace blinked. That sounds dangerous. She smiled faintly. For them. Above Carthos 9, debris drifted where a perfect fleet once stood. Below, humans were already salvaging pieces of Dominion wreckage. Already building something new. Already thinking beyond survival. Because humanity did not win by being stronger. Or smarter. Or more advanced. Humanity won because when logic said surrender, they built something impossible instead. And somewhere, deep in Dominion space, analysts would begin to whisper a new calculation. Not about weapons. Not about fleets. But about a species that turned kindness into rebellion. Scrap into strategy. And one simple word. Into the beginning of a galactic revolution.